The morning sun was barely awake when the school bell rang at Westbrook High. The air outside was heavy with the chill of early autumn, the kind of crispness that nipped at your skin but wasn't enough to see your breath. Yellow school buses rumbled into the parking lot, spilling out clusters of students who laughed, shouted, and greeted each other as if the world outside the school walls didn't matter. The courtyard buzzed like a hive. Soccer balls bounced, backpacks swung, and music leaked from headphones. It was chaos, but it was a chaos everyone was used to. In the middle of all that noise walked Maya Johnson, a 15-year-old girl with soft brown skin, deep brown eyes, and curls that framed her face like a halo. She moved quietly, clutching the strap of her backpack with one hand, keeping her eyes fixed on the ground as if afraid to draw attention. Unlike the other students who laughed in loud circles of friends, Maya walked alone. It was her first real week at Westbrook High, and everything about the school felt bigger, louder, and scarier than anywhere she had been before. She had transferred in only a few days earlier, and in those few days, she had already learned one painful truth. New students were easy targets. Maya wasn't flashy. She didn't wear the latest brands, and she didn't talk loudly in class. She was polite, reserved, and kept to herself. But sometimes those exact qualities are what bullies look for. And in Westbrook High, the queen bee, the self-proclaimed ruler of the hallways, was a girl named Chloe Parker. Chloe wasn't just popular, she was powerful. She had long blonde hair that she styled every morning as if she were about to step onto a runway. She wore clothes that screamed money, shoes that clicked on the tiles like an announcement of her arrival. Wherever Chloe went, her two best friends, Jessica and Amber, were never far behind. Together, the three of them walked like a storm, scattering insecurity and fear in their wake. When Chloe first noticed Maya, it wasn't because Maya had done anything wrong. It was simply because Maya was different. She was new. She was quiet. She didn't fit into Chloe's perfect little world of popularity and control. And to someone like Chloe, that was all the reason she needed. It started in the cafeteria. The cafeteria at Westbrook High was loud and overwhelming, a sea of trays, tables, and gossip. On her first day, Maya walked and held her lunch tray like a shield. She scanned the room, hoping to spot an empty table. But almost every table was filled with clusters of friends, laughing, whispering, or glued to their phones. Her heart pounded as she walked slowly between the rows, feeling like every eye was on her, judging her. Finally, in the far corner, she found an empty table. She sat down, relieved to have a place where she could just blend in, eat in peace, and maybe, just maybe, escape notice. But Chloe had already spotted her. From across the cafeteria, Chloe whispered something to Jessica and Amber. They all laughed. Then, with the confidence of someone who thought she owned the entire school, Chloe strutted across the room, her friends following close behind. Students turned their heads to watch. They always did when Chloe made a move. Chloe stopped right in front of Maya's table. She leaned forward, resting one manicured hand on the table, her lip curled in a smirk. Well, what do we have here? She said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The new girl thinks she can just sit here all by herself? Cute. Amber giggled. Jessica pulled out her phone, already recording. Maya froze, her eyes locked on her sandwich as though if she didn't look at them, they might disappear. But Chloe wasn't going to disappear. Not when she had an audience. Where'd you get that outfit, huh? Chloe asked, her eyes scanning Maya from head to toe. Thrift store clearance rack? Her friends burst out laughing. A few nearby tables chuckled nervously, unsure if it was safe to laugh or better to stay quiet. Maya's face flushed red. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Her throat tightened, and all she could do was lower her gaze and take a small bite of her sandwich, pretending she hadn't heard. But Chloe wasn't finished. She's not even going to say anything? Chloe mocked. Wow, you must be really boring. No wonder you don't have any friends. The laughter stung more than the words. It echoed in Maya's ears as if the whole cafeteria was in on the joke. She gripped her sandwich tighter, her knuckles turning white. Finally, Chloe flicked her hair over her shoulder and turned to her friends. Come on, girls. This isn't even worth our time. They walked away, leaving Maya to sit there with tears stinging her eyes, though she refused to let them fall. She told herself not to cry. Not here, not in front of everyone. She swallowed hard and kept chewing, even though her stomach felt sick. That moment marked the beginning. The beginning of weeks that would test Maya's strength in ways she had never imagined. But what Chloe didn't know, what nobody at Westbrook High knew, was that Maya wasn't as alone as she looked. She had someone in her corner, someone powerful, someone who had built his entire life on the idea of family. And that someone was none other than Vin Diesel. But to Maya, he wasn't a superstar or a Hollywood action hero. He was just Dad. For now, though, she kept that truth locked inside. She didn't want to use his name as a shield, didn't want to fight back with fame. She wanted to be accepted for who she was, not for who her father was. And so, she sat there in the cafeteria, silent and small, with no one around to defend her. At least, that's how it seemed on the surface. Because deep inside, Maya had inherited more strength than anyone could see. The patience, the resilience, and the quiet fire that came from being raised by a man who knew what it meant to struggle to rise and protect the people he loved. That fire was there, even if Chloe couldn't see it yet. Even if Maya herself didn't fully realize it. The first encounter was just the spark. The storm was still to come. The cafeteria incident was only the beginning. What started as whispers and giggles soon grew into a storm of cruelty that seemed to follow Maya everywhere she went. For Chloe Parker, tormenting Maya became less of an occasional act and more of a sport, a way to entertain herself and remind the school that she was in control. Maya had hoped that if she stayed quiet, the bullying would fade. Maybe Chloe would get bored and move on to someone else. But Chloe wasn't the kind of person who stopped once she started. Like a predator that smelled weakness, she locked onto Maya and refused to let go. It began subtly at first. Chloe would bump into Maya accidentally in the crowded hallways, sending her books scattering across the floor. Jessica or Amber would snicker, and Chloe would mutter just loud enough for others to hear. Oops. Maybe try watching where you're going, loser. Students passing by would laugh nervously, and Maya would crouch down quickly, collecting her books, cheeks burning with embarrassment. She wanted to scream. She wanted to yell back. But she swallowed the words, telling herself that silence was safer. But silence only encouraged Chloe more. By the second week, the hallway bumps turned into open shoves. Maya would be pushed against lockers, her backpack yanked, her homework snatched from her hands and crumpled into balls of paper. Sometimes, Chloe would simply walk by, look at Maya's shoes or sweater and laugh, saying, "Wow, that's tragic." It wasn't the insults that cut the deepest. It was the laughter of others who stood by. Too afraid to intervene, too eager to stay on Chloe's good side. Then came the rumors. Chloe was a master at twisting lies into believable stories. She started small, telling people that Maya had begged teachers for special treatment. Then she claimed Maya was so poor she lived in a shelter. Some of the rumors contradicted each other, but it didn't matter. People believed them anyway because Chloe was the one spreading them. Soon, whispers followed Maya wherever she went. In class, she would hear giggles behind her. At lunch, she would feel eyes on her back. On the bus, students shifted in their seats when she walked down the aisle, as if being near her was contagious. Maya tried to ignore it, but each rumor chipped away at her confidence. She would go home at night, sit on her bed, and stare at her reflection in the mirror, asking herself the questions no teenager should ever have to ask. Why me? What did I do wrong? Why don't they like me? One Friday afternoon, as the final bell rang, Maya walked to her locker to grab her books. She was hoping to leave quickly, slip out unnoticed before Chloe found her. But Chloe always seemed to know where Maya would be. As Maya opened her locker, Chloe appeared with Jessica and Amber. "Hey, Maya," Chloe sang sweetly, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Got any weekend plans?" "Oh, wait, you don't have friends, so I guess not." Amber laughed. Jessica pulled out her phone. Chloe reached forward and slapped Maya's locker shut with a loud clang. The sound echoed down the hallway, drawing the attention of nearby students. Maya's chest tightened. She hugged her books against her chest like a shield. "What do you want, Chloe?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Chloe leaned in close, her smirk widening. I just want you to know you don't belong here. You'll never belong here. Then she shoved Maya's backpack to the ground. Books and papers scattered everywhere. The hallway erupted in laughter. For a moment, Maya froze, tears welling in her eyes. Then, quietly, she knelt down and began picking up her books one by one. She refused to give Chloe the satisfaction of seeing her break down, but inside she was breaking. When she finally stood, Chloe was still smirking. See you Monday, loser. And just like that, Chloe strutted away, her friends trailing behind her, their laughter bouncing off the walls. That weekend, Maya barely left her room. She pretended to do homework, pretended to watch TV, but her mind replayed every cruel word, every shove, every laugh. She wanted to tell someone. She wanted to cry into her father's arms and say, Dad, I can't take this anymore. But she didn't, because Maya had a secret, one that nobody at school could know. Her father wasn't just anyone. He was Vin Diesel, Hollywood's action hero, star of blockbuster films, and a man whose face was recognized around the world. But Maya had promised herself she wouldn't tell anyone. Vin had always taught her humility. He told her that her worth didn't come from his fame, but from her own character. And Maya wanted so badly to prove that she could survive high school on her own. So she kept the secret. She kept her pain bottled up, showing her father only smiles when they ate dinner together. She told him about homework, about the weather, about the new book she was reading, but never about Chloe, never about the tears she cried when she was alone. On Monday morning, things got even worse. Maya walked into school and immediately felt the weight of dozens of stares. Students were whispering, pointing, chuckling under their breath. Confused, she pulled out her phone. Her heart dropped. Chloe had posted a picture on Instagram, one she had secretly taken of Maya in the cafeteria. In the picture, Maya was eating alone, looking down at her tray. Chloe had added a cruel caption. Lonely much? Hashtag forever alone, hashtag pathetic. The post had dozens of likes and laughing emojis. Some students had even commented with gifs mocking lonely people. Maya's stomach churned. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into thin air. But there was no escape. The whole school had seen it. That day, walking through the halls felt like walking through fire. Every whisper, every glance felt like a dagger. By the time she reached her last class, she could barely hold back the tears. It all came to a head one afternoon after school. Maya was leaving the building when Chloe and her friends blocked her path near the steps. Where do you think you're going? Chloe sneered. Home, to cry to Mommy and Daddy. Maya clenched her fists, trying to keep calm. Just leave me alone, Chloe. But Chloe only laughed. She stepped forward and shoved Maya's shoulder, hard enough to make her stumble. You're nothing, Chloe spat. Do you hear me? Nothing. Jessica and Amber laughed, their phones ready to capture the moment. Maya's chest heaved, her vision blurred with tears. For the first time, she felt like maybe Chloe was right. Maybe she was nothing. But just as that thought crossed her mind, the sound of an engine roared nearby. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and out stepped a figure Maya knew better than anyone. Her father, Vin Diesel. And in that moment, everything began to change. The crowd outside the school stairs gasped as a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out of the SUV. His presence was undeniable. Even before anyone recognized who he was, his deep voice and powerful stance demanded attention. For a split second, it was like the entire street had frozen. Maya's heart skipped. She knew that walk. She knew the protective fire in his eyes. This wasn't Vin Diesel, the movie star. This was Dad, the man who had held her hand on her first day of kindergarten, the man who taught her to ride a bike, the man who always had family first and meant it. But nobody at Westbrook High knew that truth. To the world, Vin Diesel was a superstar. His face was plastered across billboards, action movie posters, and magazine covers. People associated him with fast cars, fearless stunts, and the kind of toughness that made villains tremble. But at home, behind closed doors, Vin was something completely different. At home, he was the man who cooked pancakes on Sunday mornings. He was a dad who sat cross-legged on the floor playing board games, even when his scripts waiting on his desk. He was a father who tucked Maya into bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You're stronger than you think, my little warrior." For Maya, that was enough. She never felt the need to tell anyone that her dad was a celebrity. In fact, she avoided it. She didn't want people treating her differently, didn't want fake friends who only liked her because of his fame. So when she transferred to Westbrook High, she made a promise to herself, "I'll keep it quiet. No one has to know who my father is." That promise had felt empowering at first. She wanted to be known as Maya, not Vin Diesel's daughter. But as the weeks went on and Chloe's torment escalated, the secret began to feel like a burden. If she had revealed who her father was, the bullying might have stopped instantly. But she also knew Chloe would twist it, accuse her of bragging, and spread even more lies. So Maya stayed silent, absorbing the pain day after day, never letting her father see how badly it was hurting her. To truly understand Maya's choice, you have to know how their bond began. Years earlier, before the fame had consumed every corner of his life, Vin had walked into an adoption center. He wasn't there to browse or shop for a child. He was there because he believed every child deserved love, and his heart told him there was someone waiting for him. That someone was Maya. She had been only 4 years old, sitting in a corner with a stuffed rabbit clutched tightly in her arms. Many prospective parents had passed her by because she was shy, quiet, and didn't smile easily. But when Vin knelt down and met her eyes, something clicked. She didn't say a word, but she reached out her tiny hand and touched his. That was it. He knew in that moment she was his daughter. The adoption process wasn't simple, but Vin was determined. He visited often, bringing her books and toys, learning what made her laugh, what made her feel safe. When the adoption was finalized, he carried her out of that center in his arms, whispering, "You're home now, Maya, and you'll never be alone again." From that day forward, he was more than her protector. He was her anchor, her role model, and her best friend. Growing up, Vin never sugarcoated the world for Maya. He told her, gently but honestly, that life wasn't always fair. People might judge her for how she looked, for the color of her skin, or even for being shy. But remember, he would say, his deep voice steady and sure, they can only hurt you if you let them take away your self-worth. And you, Maya, are worth more than all the gold in the world. He taught her patience. He taught her dignity. And most importantly, he taught her the value of keeping her head held high, even when the world tried to push her down. It wasn't about fighting every battle with fists or anger. It was about choosing when to rise above and when to stand firm. Those lessons had shaped Maya's choice at Westbrook High. Every time Chloe mocked her, every time she felt the sting of humiliation, Maya heard her father's voice in her head. "You are stronger than you think." And yet, as much as those words comforted her, they didn't erase the pain of being targeted day after day. There were nights when Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between two conflicting desires. Part of her wanted to keep the secret forever, to prove to herself and everyone else that she didn't need her father's fame to protect her. She wanted to be strong on her own. But another part of her wanted to scream the truth, to watch Chloe's smug face crumble when she realized she had been bullying the daughter of Vin Diesel. That thought alone gave Maya small sparks of comfort. Still, Maya never gave in to the temptation. She remembered her father's words, "Your strength doesn't come from my name. It comes from your heart." And so she stayed silent. But Vin wasn't blind. He noticed the little things. The way Maya's smile seemed weaker after school, the way she sometimes poked at her food at dinner instead of eating, the way her shoulders slumped when she thought no one was watching. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Vin put down the script he had been reading and looked at her closely. Her heart skipped. She forced a smile. "Yeah, Dad, everything's fine." He studied her for a moment longer. "You know you can tell me anything, right? There's nothing you could say that would ever make me love you less." Maya nodded, but she didn't open up. She didn't want him to worry. He had enough pressure with movies, interviews, and the constant demands of fame. So she bottled it up, pretending everything was fine. But Vin had been around long enough to recognize when someone was hiding pain. He didn't push her, but he watched carefully, waiting for the right moment to step in if she ever needed him. At school, the secrecy worked almost too well. Nobody connected the dots. Maya used her mother's last name, Johnson, to keep things private. She didn't brag about vacations, didn't drop hints about Hollywood, didn't flash expensive gadgets that could give her away. To her classmates, she was just another quiet girl who slipped through the cracks. And to Chloe, she was a perfect target, easy to pick on, unlikely to fight back. Nobody suspected that behind the quiet smile was a home filled with movie scripts, film sets, and red carpets. Nobody imagined that the man who picked her up in a black SUV from time to time was one of the biggest stars on the planet. That was the irony. The same secret that protected her from fake friendships also made her vulnerable to real cruelty. The day Chloe shoved Maya on the steps, Maya felt her secret cracking. She didn't cry in front of Chloe, but inside, she was exhausted. She had carried the weight of silence for too long. And when she saw her father's SUV pull up, saw him step out with that fierce protective energy, she realized something. Maybe keeping the secret had gone on long enough. Because sometimes, strength doesn't mean suffering in silence. Sometimes, strength means allowing the people who love you to fight beside you. And if there was anyone who understood that, it was Vin Diesel. As he walked toward her that afternoon, Maya's world shifted. She knew Chloe's reign of cruelty was about to end. But more importantly, she knew the truth about her father, the man who had always told her that family is everything, was about to come into the open.